Between the Pages is made possible by Words and Pictures, located at 2610 Center Street Northeast in Calgary. For all your comic book, anime, toys, and more, stop by Words and Pictures. You'll be glad you did. This episode of Between the Pages is brought to you by Red Skull Comics offers the best selection of comics and trade paperbacks in Calgary, with a great selection of manga, games, magic cards, toys, statues, and a whole lot more. Want to be sure your collection is up to date? Then ask the friendly staff about their file services. Need more room for that growing collection? Then ask Red Skull about selling your back issue titles. 18 years and still going strong, Red Skull is the best little comic shop in Western Canada. Visit Red Skull Comics today at 720A Edmonton Trail Northeast in Calgary. Then find them on the web at www.redskull.com and like them on Facebook.
Well, it's another fine Saturday afternoon here in the Naked 8 production studio. No, really, it's not Saturday afternoon. It's actually Thursday. We're coming to you from the past. We're projecting ourselves into the future for another fine show of Between the Pages. This is episode number 23. We've got a great show. We're talking about science fiction today. Science fiction in the news, science fiction in our presentation today, and we're going to bring you three great books. One that's kind of science fiction-y. I'm Richard Cleveland, as always. I forgot to introduce myself. Yeah, that's me. See? There we go. That's me. Down there. That's me. And as always with me, my inimitable co-host, the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Jason Bishop, who this week has got some sort of brain slug up inside his... what do you call that thing?
Brain?
Yeah, brain. No,
that's why it's called the brain slug.
Yeah, no, it's attached to something. Not sure what. It's gray matter.
All I know is I've traveled to the future, and there's still no cure for the common cold.
There's still no cure.
So
you're a little under the weather.
I'm a little under the weather. I'm a little nasally, but, I'll get through it.
So why did we project ourselves into Saturday afternoon from Thursday evening?
Because Saturday afternoon, I want to be sitting in a hot tub.
Oh, okay, I got you. That works for me. And tomorrow, of course, I'm going golfing. I get to go golfing tomorrow.
That's right.
Yeah, I get to spend my day golfing.
And maybe win some clubs or something.
I've already got new clubs. I got those last year.
That's what you won last year.
That's what I won last year. So
how do you play a shitty game of golf? Don't have golf clubs.
That's right. That's right.
They'll just give them to you.
Well, or have a shitty set of golf clubs like I did.
And they'll still give you a set of golf clubs.
And they'll still give you a good set of clubs. Okay. So this week's news is a little different from what we normally do. We usually talk about what's happening in the industry, in terms of what's happening at Marvel, DC, and the other boys on the block.
And we still will just a wee bit. I do want to mention Rob Liefeld has left DC.
Okay.
And he was going to leave a little later. He had announced... on, I don't know, 14, 15 issues. Now he's leaving on the 0 issues. They're coming out next month. He has tweeted this. It's all public. It's not
right.
A rumor. He is leaving, and it's due to an editorial issue, disagreement, as it were. And
so some bad blood.
Yeah, some bad blood. And he's not the first to leave DC under these situations. Some have stayed with the company, like Gail Simone, and just left the books that they were having difficulty on. Others like John Rosman have left over similar circumstances. We had Chris Robinson who quit only to get fired for publicly stating how much he disliked DC and how it was being run at that point. So I don't know. There's something going on internally at DC, and honestly, I was curious when Diane Nelson put 6 guys in charge of the company, and it really sounded like too many cooks in the kitchen. And I'm wondering if maybe that has something to do with that. But wish Rob well on whatever his next venture is. I know he's got lots of stuff coming out through Image and with Prophet, Glory, Bloodstrike, and Bloodstrike just got optioned recently. So I'm sure he doesn't need DC that much.
No, I guess he doesn't. Yeah, it sounds. It just sounds to me like something really majorly went wrong, because he was a major force at DC for a long time. And for an abrupt leaving like this, it just makes you wonder.
52. Well, I mean, he's actually said he's tried to quit 4 times now. So, like, they keep talking him out of it or paving over whatever the problem is. But he's one of these fairly public guys, and he'll out it on Twitter or whatever pretty quickly. So there's only so much of that DC would have been able to swallow after a while too. So
okay,
maybe it was just a mutual, like, all right, you're unhappy, we'll let you go this time, we won't talk you back into it, no more pie for you.
No more pie. All right. Well, we've got, in other news, we're going to shamelessly promote a couple of things. First and foremost, I want to give a shameless plug to our Indiegogo campaign, which we just started the other night.
That's right.
And
literally Wednesday night.
Yes, and we're asking for a certain dollar value. Just go over to Indiegogo or actually go over to our Facebook page. There's a link there to our Indiegogo campaign. And what Indiegogo is, of course, is a crowdsourcing funding operation that will help us to upgrade the studio, bring you, better quality content. We have a wide range of shows now.
Yeah. This is like Kickstarter.
In the folder. Yeah, it's kind of like Kickstarter, but it's available to anybody worldwide. So go over, check it out, share it with your friends. If you can't contribute, that's fine too. Just do us a favor and share it on all your social networks. We would really appreciate that. Secondly, I want to talk about the Red and White Club or the Red and White Calgary Comic and Toy Expo, which is happening September 16th at the Red and White Club at McMahon Center. We have some tickets to give away. We're actually getting very short on those tickets. I think we've only got 4 left out of the 10 that we had.
So if you want one, let us know quickly.
All you have to do is go to our Facebook page and, of course, let us know through a message on Facebook that you want red and white tickets, and we will make sure that you hopefully get them. We will send them out via mail. Inside the package, you're not only getting a ticket, but you're getting one of the comics from our previously reviewed shelf, which is in the package already. You'll get a Naked Ape Productions sticker. All of these books, other than having been read once, are untouched. Any Marvel books that have a code in them, those are all still intact. So by all means, go over, check it out. Say, I want red and white tickets on Facebook, and that's at our Facebook page on Naked Ape Prod, or Naked Ape Productions on Facebook. So go check that out, and I can't reach that.
Okay.
So check it out. They've got, they'll be running a screening of Lloyd the Conqueror, which we talked to Michael Peterson last week, who is the producer and co-writer of that movie. He was here in studio last week, and we had a great time with him, and he's tweeted a lot about us this week. I can't believe it. So it was a good time had by all, and we'll be there. Naked Ape Productions will be there. We'll have our own little table for Between the Pages, and we'll have a special guest host with me that weekend, because I know that you're doing your own thing that weekend.
Oh, they'll still see me on camera.
They will. Yeah, you're going to do a couple of the interviews.
I'm going to be at the show with my own table, selling some of my wares, as well as the shop I work for will also be there. There's a lot of presence of me there.
Right.
So I'll be bouncing around for my table and, of course, the podcast table. So.
Okay, cool. We got somebody to man the table when I'm out talking to people, so that's kind of a good thing. What else we got happening?
I can't wait till you come interview me.
I'm going to come interview you. Find out what you're selling. That'll be weird.
I know.
That's just going to be weird. I'm going to interview Rob too,
and then I'm going to run over to your booth and interview you.
Okay. That's going to be so weird. Coming up on September 22nd and 23rd at Wickham House, Mount Royal University, is the 2nd annual Calgary Horror Con. And they've got a great lineup of guests coming to this. They've got Linnea Quigley, the Scream Queen.
The original Scream Queen.
The original. And she was also voted most attractive by Maxim Magazine, Horror Queens.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, and that was very recently. We also have Oliver Robbins from Poltergeist 1 and 2. He was the brother of the little girl who got sucked into the TV. I can't remember her name, but she passed away.
Yeah, she passed away on that one.
No, she passed away on number 3.
Was it 3?
It was while they were doing 3 that she passed away.
Yeah, it was pneumonia or something like that.
Yes.
Right?
And 2 of the men behind the very famous hockey mask, Mr. Kane Hodder, he wore the hockey mask in Friday the 13th as Jason 4 times. So he was in 4 of those movies. And the original wearer of the hockey mask,
The first to wear it.
Mr. Richard Brooker will also be there. They have paranormal, the Alberta Paranormal Investigator Society is going to be there. A Brush with Death, a macabre magician, will be there. That is Yates the Magician. Funny guy. I met him the other day, and we've got a project in mind together. We'll see contortionist Vichalou. So there's a lot of great things. There's some exclusive screenings happening that weekend as well. So check it out. It's $12 for one day, $20 for a weekend pass. You can go to www.horror-con.ca for more information about that. So definitely check it out. We're going to be down there as well doing interviews, talking to some of the celebrities, and getting some full weekend coverage of that whole show.
That's right.
So check it out.
We can get all bloody doing it.
Yeah, if you don't know how to get there, go over to our Facebook page, Naked Ape Productions, and there's a link there on our Facebook page to go check it out, as well as all the links that you need to our Indiegogo campaign. There's a link there to the Red and White Comic and Toy Expo. So yeah, check them out, and if you haven't seen the trailer for Lloyd the Conqueror, check that out too. And like everybody on Facebook.
Yeah, if you check out the trailer, and if it's not coming to your city, go on their website and demand it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm sure they'll bring it to you.
Now, we've got a few people that we have to thank this week, as we do every week, for helping us get this show running, as I'm knocking everything over on my desk.
Is your switcher not working?
It is, but it isn't for some reason.
All right.
It's kind of intermittent today. We have Gorilla Printing at gorillaprinting.ca. They provide us with all of our business cards, these funny things. Let me just show you one of these. We have these little guys that we put out each and every week. Or you find these at the comic book stores. A lot of comic book stores in Calgary have these.
We'll be getting them out across Canada soon as well.
Yes. So pick up one of these. It tells you how to get a hold of us. There's a little QR code on the back. If you've got a smartphone with a QR code.
Get nice and close and they can scan it while watching the show.
Okay, there you go. There you go.
There you go.
I hope my thumb's not over it too much.
Now, you guys with the camera phones, hold still.
There you go.
Got it? Okay.
You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube as well. What else we got for those guys? Oh, yeah, they do all kinds of printing, not just that kind of stuff. They do business cards. They do trade show banners. They do trade show displays. You name it, they can do it. All digital printing. 6-day turnaround from Toronto to Calgary. That we got our stuff in 6 days. From the time that we put in the artwork, and their prices are absolutely reasonable. Go to gorillaprinting.ca and check out everything that they have to offer. As well as we have Red Skull Comics located at 720A Edmonton Trail Northeast here in Calgary. Quit making faces at me. These guys have a great selection of books and toys. Come on. Red Skull Comics, you can find them on the web as well at redskull.com. That's REDDSKULL.com, and they are the best little comic shop in Western Canada, because if you've ever been into their store, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's kind of tiny, but they do have a great selection of books, back issues, graphic novels, statues, toys. Just don't eat a big meal and go in there. So check out Red Skull Comics. And that leads us to our topic of this week, and we're talking sci-fi and comic books.
We are.
We are.
We are talking about science fiction and comic books, and I mean, really, science fiction has been in comics for quite some time. I mean, we wouldn't have superheroes now without that science fiction.
Well, absolutely.
element.
That's kind of the running thread through most things.
But we're going to cover the more hardcore science fiction stuff today, and this is just a small spattering of the history of what's going on in comics and science fiction. And you know, this guy right here,
Flash Gordon.
I'm a little soft on that camera.
You are today. I don't know why it's just not focusing properly, but we'll have to deal with that.
So, you know, Flash Gordon, he's really the pulp originator. moved from the pulps into comic books,
Right.
movie serials. Of course, that wonderful 70s campy one.
That was actually the 80s.
80s? Was
Yeah,
it 80s?
yeah.
Okay, early
Yeah.
80s. I love
Music
that
done by
movie.
Queen.
Queen, yeah, I still listen to that soundtrack. It was awesome, and that stuff was really some of the greatest science fiction stuff.
It was.
That regular. Well, he was far from the regular Earth guy.
There's been
He
a
was
couple
like
of
the
television
smartest
series
jock
over the
ever.
years.
Yeah,
Most recently, just a couple of years ago,
yeah,
which
just a
ran
couple
on
years
Space.
ago, and if you missed it, you didn't miss much.
You didn't miss much, no. But Flash Gordon was kind of the jumping off point for sci-fi in comics because he was also a newspaper serial as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Russ Manning, and there's a lot of guys who worked on that one, and just wonderful stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I'd like to see them do a new updated movie of Flash Gordon. I really would.
It's in the works.
Oh, very cool.
It was optioned, and guys are working on it. I don't know if it's ever going to see the light of day. I do
Right.
believe the filmmaker behind the Mummy movies was initially involved with that, but which made me a little worried.
Well, as long as they don't put Brendan Fraser in it, we'll be okay.
I don't mind him, but not in Flash Garden.
Yeah, yeah. So what else you got for us?
Okay, well, moving into some comic book characters, we got to talk a little bit about Jack King Kirby. This is Commandy. This was more of a post-apocalyptic science fiction. We have Commandy, the last boy on Earth.
Right.
All the animals have mutated into intelligent beings unto themselves. And,
Right, they can talk, they do
Yeah.
science.
But Kirby did a lot of science fiction in his work. I mean, Marvel got Galactus and the Fantastic Four and Silver Surfer, those very science fiction
Right.
type characters. And meanwhile, the New Gods over at DC Comics, which again was a very sci-fi type of story, and really all that fourth world stuff that he did for DC and other publishers as well. He was really into the science fiction stuff. So, I mean, science fiction and Jack King Kirby go hand in hand.
Right.
So he's definitely worth a mention outside of a lot of the licensed material you're going to see on the racks today.
Now, Commandy didn't come back in the New 52, did he?
No, but he's kind of always sat outside of continuity. Even in the last version, they weren't sure how to use him. He showed up in that wonderful weekly experiment called Wednesday Comics as one of the full-page strips in there.
Okay.
And they presented it in a very Prince Valiant kind of way, and it was really good.
Wow.
It looked beautiful. It was a really good read.
He's a character I'd like to see come back because when I was a
Yeah.
kid, I read some of the Commandy books,
Yeah.
of course.
I almost want to see that full-page strip as a regular thing in a newspaper. I mean, that was just awesome.
He would fit newspaper strip very well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially if newspapers got away from the real kid kind of stuff that they do now.
Yeah.
With the Garfields and the family circuses and all that other kind of stuff. If they went back to some of those old strips like Superman and Flash Gordon, I
Yeah.
think we could see a new insurgence of Sunday morning comic readers in the newspaper.
Yeah,
I really
mean,
do.
It's also kid-friendly, but how many kids pick up the newspaper? I mean, the parents read it and they flip to that last page.
When I was a kid, that was the
know.
first thing I did every Saturday mornings. I
Yeah.
pulled out the big insert in the Winnipeg Free Press, and I would flip through it, and I would read all the comics that were in
Yeah.
there from front to
But
back.
my dad never did, right? And he would have loved those more mature strips.
Right.
And it's not like they don't make them, but our local papers never picked them up.
Wow, that's sad.
I mean, Spider-Man's still being produced, but it was.
Is it really?
It was never in our papers.
Wow, that'd be a great strip to run.
Yeah.
That'd be a great strip to run.
Absolutely.
More
Absolutely.
adult content there. And Commandy also appeared in the kids' television series Batman Brave and the Bold. There was
Oh,
a couple of episodes with Commandy as well.
Man, they were. I love Brave and the Bold because when they did Justice League, they grabbed as many characters as they
Yeah.
could for that series, and Brave and the Bold went, "What's left?"
Yeah.
and they found it.
Boy, did they ever.
Man, you were using some really weird characters.
I
on
really
that show.
liked the Brave and the Bold, even though it was very cartoony.
Yeah, it's
and
definitely
very
a younger
kid-friendly.
audience.
I really enjoyed the show. I thought
I do too.
I thought
I
it
mean,
breathed a new life into the character
There's-
and into a new audience.
Yeah, and I think Batman, to get away from science fiction for a second, we'll do this on a Batman show, but Batman, he's one of those characters who's very versatile. You can do a lot with him in different formats
Right.
and different tones. I mean, we've seen success with the 60s campy version,
Sure.
and that was done in comics as well, and that's why Brave and the Bold works, because they were kind of doing the similar things.
Right.
You can see the more comic booky, actiony stuff works in superheroes. He works in that more noirish. I mean, he's very, very versatile. You can put him in a horror story. And that's the beauty of a character like Batman.
Sure.
And Marvel's got that too in Wolverine. You can stick him in almost anything, and he works.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Now, who else do we got there?
Okay.
Let's get into something very obscure.
Obscure.
I know you brought some really obscure stuff.
Okay. Well. Okay. We'll talk about Marvel's sci-fi universe for a second.
Guardians of the Galaxy.
Guardians of the Galaxy, which is becoming kind of relevant now. It really was a B-list concept at Marvel,
Right.
Until Thanos showed up in the end of Avengers. Spoilers. And I mean,
Yeah, it's got a whole new life, that book.
After that, yeah, it really breathed life back into the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Right.
And shortly after that, they made the announcement for the film,
Right.
which is going to be... I'm still not sure what shape that's going to look like, if it's going to be the more modern version or the classic version.
I think it's more modern
I think
because
it's a
they've
mix of the two.
They've got the raccoon character in there.
That's the images they showed. I'm wondering if they're going with Star-Lord as the lead or Vance Astrovic, because the concept still, what they pitched is the log line of the man from Earth,
Right.
being thrust into this sci-fi future kind of thing, which is very Buck Rogers kind of concept.
Sure.
Set in the Marvel universe. Really, the classic version and it was more in tune with that than what the contemporary version is. So
Sure.
I'm still very curious to see what it is. I think it's going to be a blending of things that worked, and they'll probably toss out the stuff that didn't. But I think they'll probably make nods to both series. I'm hoping they do, because I was a fan of both iterations.
Right.
And speaking of the more modern one, they came out of this series, Annihilation Conquest. And there is that new short-lived Captain Marvel character in there, but most importantly, Star-Lord, who is part of the more modern version of Guardians of the Galaxy.
Very cool. What else we got there?
Okay, well, speaking of obscure stuff, I mean, this is really out.
This is out there?
Left field. You might, I don't know. Have you heard of a little thing called Star Wars?
Star Wars. Jeez, I seem to remember that back in the 70s when I was a kid. About a young farm boy and some guy dressed in black and a princess who had her boobs taped down because she couldn't wear underwear in space, according to George Lucas. Oh, did I spoil that? Yeah, there's no underwear in space.
You don't need the support because there's no gravity.
Well, then how were they walking flat on the deck? I ask you.
Magnets.
Magnets?
In the shoes.
In the shoes, okay.
Yeah.
But the boobs would always rise up because of no gravity.
Jiggly.
Jiggly. Okay. Well, that's enough boob talk for one
Star Wars has got a huge history in
course
comic
it does.
books. I mean, shortly after the first film, Marvel had a nice, successful, long run with it. And then after the films ended, it kind of tapered off, and they didn't know what to do with it and let it go. And Dark Horse, a few years later, snapped it up, and I'd have to credit them more than even the Timothy Zahn books for reinvigorating interest in the franchise.
In the franchise, yeah. I would have to agree with you. I think the stories that have come out of IDW, or Dark Horse, pardon me, I get those two always confused. I don't know why.
They're very similar publishers. I can understand.
Dark Horse, I mean, anything that's come out of them in the Star Wars universe has really expanded that whole universe and the characters that are in it. I think they've done a wonderful job. The artwork in these books is incredible.
And Dark Horse has been doing it for 25 years, and they're really quality books.
Right.
I mean, we reviewed that Darth Vader one, and that was the first one I'd read in quite some time.
Right.
And I mean, I read that stuff when it first started coming out, and then there was just so much of it that I kind of tapered off. But
Well, I'm a huge Vader fan, as you know.
and that Vader book was great. I'm looking forward to reading the rest.
I wonder
of
what
it.
that says about me, because I like Batman. He's all dressed in black. Vader's all dressed in black. I wonder, what does that say about me? I'm not sure.
You're dark.
I'm very dark.
You're dark.
I'm very dark.
Dark and dank.
Well, I don't know about dank. I do shower every day.
Okay, well, I said dank, not stank.
Oh, okay. All right. So that would bring us to the next.
I can't smell anything.
That's right.
Now.
So that brings us to the next big franchise.
And speaking, since you already tipped the hat to IDW, they have the other
big franchise.
Obscure franchise.
Now, this franchise went to many hands over the years.
It has traveled.
It was at Marvel, DC.
Gold Key. Marvel.
Gold Key. Yes,
DC,
I forgot about Gold Key.
Malibu. Back to Marvel again, to DC's Wildstorm division again, and most recently, IDW.
IDW, yeah.
I mean, they have been all over the place, and for the most part, everybody's had a really good runs and takes on it. I think DC's stuff was really good. That was the stuff I really read a lot of when it came to Star Trek comic books. Peter David got involved with some of those. And I love his novels.
Do you think that Star Trek as a book when it was in the Marvel days, do you think that's what really launched a lot of the merchandising that we saw today? They kind of picked up on that George Lucas ideal of merchandising this property?
I think so, because, really Star Trek was kind of dead, but it was doing so well in syndication that reinvigorated some interest, and it was Marvel picking up the license in time with that first movie.
Right. It's okay. You're sick. I understand.
Yeah. Getting dry throat there. But, Star Trek, long history in comics, and it continues with over at IDW. They're currently doing the Star Trek series based on the new film.
Mm-hmm.
Star Trek Doctor Who, and upcoming Star Trek Next Generation.
That's awesome. I'd like to see more from what IDW does with these properties, especially with Star Trek 2 coming out. I believe it's set for release next year, is it not?
Yeah, I mean, they've been hard at work on that. Benedict Cumberbatch's characters kind of leaked out. I'm not going to be the guy to spoil it for you, though. So
yeah, we understand that.
Stay
he's
away
coming
from the internet, except for our show.
Yeah. Always come back to Naked Ape Prod or Productions, and I don't know why I always say Prod now, but we're prodding the Naked Ape. Let's quickly talk about some of the TV properties that have been moved into comic books in terms of sci-fi, and then I want to save a couple of those books for near the end.
Okay, well, there's one I specifically I brought because somebody requested us.
Yes, somebody wanted us to talk more about that property.
Okay, speaking of TV properties, I mean, Star Trek kicks that off. Here's another obscure.
With the latest Doctor?
He's only the longest running science fiction character on television.
Yes.
Doctor Who. This is the latest version, Matt Smith, with the photo cover on the IDW comic book. And, man, huge Doctor Who fan myself. I've been through pretty much all of them now. I started with Tom Baker, and then through PBS's rebroadcasts, I eventually saw all the ones that at least...
Tom Baker was my first Doctor, too. I saw him on PBS in Winnipeg when they were running that show, and they'd hold all the little, the pledge drives and that kind of stuff. So I really got hooked on the character very quickly. Mm-hmm. I thought as far as the television properties go, it was poorly executed in terms of the special effects.
Their budget was about the same as ours.
Yeah, none. But they did, with what they had to work with, they put out a very entertaining show every week. I liked the cliffhanger fact that kept bringing you back each and every weekend to watch the show or whenever it was on. So you really wanted to tune in and find out the continuing story of what's happening. We got to learn about Gallifrey, which is the home of the Time Lords. Believe it, I know a little bit about Doctor Who. Does that make any sense? But yeah,
I almost want to do a whole show about Doctor Who. That's
we may just do that. We may just do that. I think we should do a Star Wars show, a Star Trek show.
We did a Star Trek show.
Well, not based on comics. We didn't. Oh yeah, we did. We did.
Hey,
we should do a Star Wars show.
Go into our library, kids.
Yeah. See, I don't even remember what we do. We need to do a Star Wars show. We need to do a Doctor Who show. We need to do a show on Serenity, I think. Firefly Serenity.
Well, I think those Joss Whedon fans would be happy about that.
I think so, too.
And, if we're doing that, maybe we should do Buffy, too.
Do we have to? The first couple seasons were okay. The last season was great. It was great. It was awesome. 2 thumbs up. I don't know how you dive off of a...
My girlfriend's giving him the death stare.
I don't know how you dive off the top of a radio tower into nothingness and then, hey, guess what? 6 episodes later, you're back in a brand new season when everybody thought you were dead. And you have a sister that you never knew you had.
You know, when you get brain damage, you suddenly develop sisters.
Okay, cool. Who ended up going topless in another movie. Little sister goes topless.
Yeah, I saw that movie.
Yeah. We won't talk about that because that has nothing to do with sci-fi. What do we got next?
All right. Well, this is a bit of a fan favorite as well. Fringe. Yeah, I've only seen like the first 3 episodes of Fringe, so I don't have much to say about Fringe.
You know, Fringe is a very strange show.
It looked like a re-envisioning of X-Files, but I know it deviated fairly quickly from that.
Very quickly.
I was a little worried it was going, another Monster of the Week show, but definitely deviated from that, from what I understand.
Right.
I mean, I've caught an episode here and there since then, but it's at some point I'm going to catch up on the show for sure.
Well, I will tell you, from what I know of the show, is that the world has been really opened up. We see a variety of things happening now. The 2 parallel universes are now merging somehow. Characters are going back and forth between these two universes. It's very strange. I never quite understood the television show, and I can honestly say I've never read the comic, so I don't really know what the art is like. But if the comic is very close to what the show is, then I think they've got a hit on their hands. And of course, you brought a graphic novel, so this has been out in...
There's actually 2 trades.
Okay.
This is the first miniseries, Fringe, and then there's another one called Tales from the Fringe.
Okay.
And I think there's plans for a few more yet.
The series is wrapping, isn't it? Or is it already wrapped?
I think we're in our final season.
We're in our final season.
This season that's coming up.
Right, okay.
Speaking of new shows, I think this one's from the mind of Steven Spielberg. I'm not sure. There was a couple of shows that came out recently. One was Alphas, and one was this show, Falling Skies.
Falling Skies.
And Dark Horse produced this graphic novel in line with the debut of first season. There's another one coming out soon for the debut of second season, and they're meant to be setups and bridge the gap between seasons. In case this one, it sets up the first season.
Now, what do we know about this show? Because I honestly have never seen this show.
Neither have I.
Oh, okay. So we know absolutely nothing about it.
I do have some DVR'd, so at some point I'm going to sit down and watch the season. It is essentially the aliens come to Earth a scenario the first time they come to Earth, and the human reaction to that, and the fallouts of something like that. And I think it's going to be more grounded in reality rather than the V setup.
Right, okay. So there won't be aliens like harvesting us for food later on.
I didn't say that. I haven't seen it.
Okay. If anybody knows, tweet us, send us a Facebook message or something.
I just grabbed the books. I didn't read them all.
Oh, okay. See, here he's the comic book expert, folks, and
I can't read everything. Nobody can read everything.
That's true.
And I tried really hard to read as much as I can, and it's just never enough.
You know how much time I have to actually sit down and read our review books every week? Very little. I have to find the time.
I handed in the real review books this week, and I'm like, I read them all already. Here you go.
Here you go.
Normally, I have a little tougher time reading them, but it was a lighter week for me. Being sick and all, it was like,
Little chicken soup, little comic book action. There you
go. Speaking of some... well, actually, we didn't. But speaking of another book I haven't read, Jonathan Hickman's been doing a lot of great stuff over at Marvel, and he started off with some great image books, this being one of them, Red Mass from Mars. And we did a little flip through it. Like I said, I haven't read it yet. Jonathan Hickman stuff, the stuff I have read, I think I would honestly recommend almost anything he's put out blind, with just because, and none of it has been
Well, Hickman's such a force in comic books, and he really does sci-fi well.
Yeah, absolutely. And this one's beautifully illustrated. It's just gorgeous.
Well, we were talking a little bit about the way they colored this book and how they used the the more hotter scenes with the reds and the yellows and the oranges, and then
and go in the blues and
yeah,
purples and those colder
it
scenes.
made the transition to the blues and the cold areas of the shot, and I think it works well. It tells a story, even without having read it. It tells a very decent story.
And I mean, this is through some very capable talent. I'm really curious, and I'm wondering if they talk about that in somewhere in the book, in some of the making of stuff at the back there. But Jonathan Hickman's very meticulous when it comes to his book. He meticulously plans it. He is an artist himself, and he comes from a very design background.
Right.
So I can see this being from his brain. He's saying to his artist, his painter, his colorist, this is kind of the approach I want to see with this. But then again, it could have been the colorist as well. I mean, you never know whose vision that comes with. But that's certainly something I can see Hickman being directly involved with, because he's like I said, very meticulous, almost anal to what he does, and it shows in the work. He's just he's so much detail in the writing and the art. He's one of the greatest modern talents we've got right now.
I have to agree with you. I do have to agree with you.
Speaking of some classic, well, I keep saying speaking of, but we weren't.
We weren't.
Here's another classic comic book sci-fi character, Magnus Robot Fighter.
You bet.
Started off with the Gold Key. This is the more recent Dark Horse edition. This is a collection of that material. But you had a long history with both iterations of Valiant. And who knows, with Dark Horse being almost done with this Gold Key stuff, maybe it'll be back at Valiant in the future.
Who knows?
For me, I think he belongs there. That universe was built on the Gold Key characters, and I'm loving the new Valiant stuff. But
yeah, the new Valiant stuff is really taking stores and comic buyers by storm.
Yeah, I mean, the orders they're not up there like huge numbers, but for an indie
they're
book,
not the Batman numbers, but they are climbing.
For an indie book, they're great. They've been instant sellouts.
Right.
They've gone back to multiple printings, so I think this Valiant's going to be here for a good long while. Even without the Gold Key characters.
And we have some local talent involved with Valiant.
Carrie Nord's the regular artist on Exo Manowar.
Yeah, you bet.
Yeah.
So that's another sci-fi book.
Exo Manowar, very much sci-fi book. You know, here you got this Visigoth who finds this alien armor.
Right.
And then eventually wakes in modern time, but a very science fiction concept for sure, with that alien armor, Iron Man type of thing.
Cool. So we're going to move on to another television property before we get to our last two books that kind of fit into this genre very well.
Okay, well, this is TV and film. Serenity being the film version, Firefly being the television series.
Right.
Joss Whedon, again, he's very prolific in television and comic books and crossing the two. And most of his stuff has shown the same quality
as the shows.
Not all, but this especially this stuff. I mean, the Serenity books so far have all been written by people directly involved with this TV series, as writers and directors and producers and things like that. So
now, do you think this, although now it's in comic book form, it still has a huge following? Do you think it's ever going to see the small screen again? I'd like to think that it is.
I'd love to see it. I hope it does. We know Joss Whedon would love to do it again, but I think he's a little heartbroken over the last two attempts.
Right.
And
well, Nathan Fillion was said to have wanted to have bought this property at some point.
He's led a kind of internet campaign. He does want to buy this back from 20th Century for Joss Whedon to start doing again. So I mean, he wants to do it. Joss would probably do it if he had full control over the property. So you never know. I think it's unlikely, though.
Do you think that Joss has moved on from his older properties like Buffy and Angel and Serenity or Firefly?
Well, he's going to be in high demand right now.
Well, he's doing Avengers 2.
He's doing Avengers 2. He's
helping with a television property.
He's locked into Marvel Studios till 2015.
Wow.
So yeah, between the
he's not going to have a lot of time to do anything.
Yeah, producing a Marvel television series, which I personally think is a Shield series. Don't quote me on that. I have nothing to base that concept
You're not the
on.
only one who speculates about that, though.
But I think that just makes sense. Superheroes on television are just too expensive for the most part, and rarely look good when they do. We've seen it in the past. They just, when they do them, they got to do them in that Smallville way where, they trickle things out in a slow way.
That kind of brings me to a question then.
You're thinking of Arrow,
it's
right?
kind of a little off topic, but what do you think of Arrow with the latest introduction that they've made on the internet that they're bringing the Huntress in as his love interest?
Interesting. And now I'm wondering if this is going to be Huntress Helena Bertinelli.
It is.
Okay, that's fine, because then they don't have to directly tie it to Batman.
That's right. Well, they're bringing in the Huntress character, and they say that in what I read the other day,
it's going to be Helena Wayne.
No, it's not.
Okay.
It's not Helena Wayne. Her father is a crime boss, and she wants to take him down.
They're going over with the last iteration of the character.
Yeah.
Because the original Huntress was Catwoman and Batman's daughter.
Yes.
Yeah, but that's way back, kids. And actually,
although it's coming back,
and now it's again in World's Finest.
Yes,
the most recent New 52 version.
Right.
The one we had for many, many years was the daughter of the crime boss. And,
right.
I think that's going to work well with that character. They're similar characters. Honestly, I think she could probably front her own show, which is probably their idea behind bringing her in.
You think they're going to do a spin-off show with her?
Not right away. I mean, that really all depends on the success of Arrow.
Do you think that might lead into a new Birds of Prey show?
No. Honestly, I given time, maybe. But given the failure of the last one, they need a lot of distance from it. And
the last show failed on many levels, but it wasn't from the acting standpoint as far as I was concerned. I thought the acting was done well. I just thought the stories were bad, and they
presented it poorly.
The way that they designed some of the characters, like Clayface, for instance, who we saw near the end of the first season, which was the end of the series.
I got about 3 episodes in, and I'm like, I'm done.
I have it just because I think all those gals are hot. So
I had borrowed the box set only to watch the Gotham Girls web series that came with the discs. I'm like, why did you put that on this? I'm like, I want these, but I don't want to buy Birds of Prey to get them.
There you go. All right, what else have we got here?
Well, okay, DC's major franchise of Green Lantern,
right?
And we're just not going to talk about that film. But Green Lantern, easily they're a heavy science fiction concept. A lot of people think of
very science fiction heavy.
But since Jeff Johns has gone on there, they've really thrown out the superhero stuff, and it has gone back to its science fiction roots.
Right.
And hasn't really looked back. They leave the superhero stuff to like the Justice League books and things like that. But the Green Lantern books, all 3 of them, including 4 if you want to include Red Lanterns, they're pure science fiction.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I mean, they almost cross over into that monster book category for me at some points, especially with the Red Lanterns. I mean, that's almost a monster book with a science fiction overtone.
Yeah.
But I believe that if they go back and do another movie property of this, and this is something we were talking about on our previous show with the advent of them wanting to do the Justice League, I still believe that they should go back and take all these individual characters, much like Marvel did, and build the franchise before they do a team movie.
Yeah, I think so too.
And I think a team movie would be a real science fiction superhero-esque movie, because there's a lot of science fiction type of characters. Superman's a science fiction character. Green Lantern's a science fiction character. Martian Manhunter's a science fiction character. I mean, these are all characters or heroes that take their roots from sci-fi. I mean, Batman, more of a detective, and Wonder Woman being a more fantasy character. Yeah.
Yeah, but that said, I mean, we're having seen Avengers. I mean, Hawkeye hasn't had a film, Black Widow hasn't had a film, although they've been in other people's films.
Right.
And the Hulk had one bad film and one good film that nobody saw behind it. So, that said, you can use a group film to launch a series from, especially when the character shines on film really well, like the Hulk did.
Right.
And we know there's a TV series in the works.
Yeah.
And now I'm wondering if they're thinking, oh, maybe we should go feature film again.
I think they would do very well if they took Mark Ruffalo and made a feature film, a creature feature film.
Oh, that'd be cool.
And really get into the heart of the Frankenstein monster, which really the Hulk was designed
Absolutely.
after. It was Frankenstein and Jekyll and Hyde that were kind of mashed together to make that character.
Yeah.
And I think if they did that again and they really told a story from that perspective, I think we'd have an excellent film.
Yeah.
And something that would lead into a really great human-esque or a human emotional story, like we did in the 70s with the Incredible Hulk that Lou Ferrigno starred in.
Yeah, and the problem is, I think that people were trying too hard to recreate the TV series
in the movies.
Yeah, and that's not as relevant as it used to be.
Right.
So you kind of have to take the best aspects of that character, and you can't have just redo it. You got to make sure it's viable for today's audience and a broad audience, not guys in their 40s and 50s.
Yeah. And last but not least, we are
by request, and I don't argue with this. A
viewer asked us to talk more about this property because we didn't talk enough about it, and we had a poster of it in the background for a while, which I have to put back up.
And we are fans of this franchise.
Yes, we both are.
So, and being that...
And a huge Chuck Heston fan.
Yeah, being this is Naked Ape Productions, we always have to talk about...
The Planet of the Apes.
A little bit of Ape Nation here. And this book from Boom Studios, I mean, it's actually quite incredible.
Yeah, they did a really good job with this series so far.
You know, you always think Planet of the Apes, and just rolling that off the top of your head, if you haven't seen it, you think, oh, that's kind of cheesy, and you don't expect too much out of it. But you actually go back and watch those movies, and they're really intelligent movies.
They are.
They're multi-layered in all sorts of ways in presentation, and despite these masks that couldn't evoke much emotion, even the apes.
I think they did a great job with those masks for what they were.
Yeah, this is the 60s.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, for, that kind of prosthetic that didn't have a lot of movement, they did an amazing job. And they're doing an amazing job with this comic book here as well. Dale Gregory and Carlos Magno on this edition.
Now, this is not the only comic book publisher that's had the Planet of the Apes title.
No, Marvel's had it. Some smaller publishers have had it in the past, whose names escape me. I think Adventure was one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Dark Horse did it right around the time Tim Burton
released his bad film.
Yeah, he really did kind of take a good old dump over it, didn't he?
Yeah.
Most recently Boom Studios, and it's quite the franchise over there. They launched right away with the monthly series, and they've had several mini-series that tie in as well, and a new monthly starting up soon as well, so a second title for Planet of the Apes. And this is all in the original movie continuity, not the Rise of the Planet of the Apes continuity, which I'm wondering if is still yet to come. But
it looks like it might, because there's a new Planet of the Apes movie in the works.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if the reason why there isn't a comic book is they're still world building there,
right?
And they want to do it themselves in the films before the comics and stuff, and give them some holes to fill. But they don't want anything contradictory happening. So I assume there'll be one based in that universe at some point. I'd like to see it, but
now, did you see the original Planet of the Apes in the theater?
No, I'm not that old.
Okay. I did.
I do remember vaguely. I'd actually bought it not that recently. I just haven't had a chance to watch it. The animated series. And I remember
there was an animated series?
There was an animated series, and I remember really liking it. And then I bought this box set for it, the complete series. And I watched the first episode, and they're like, literally, they look like cutouts. They're so poorly animated.
That was done by Filmation, wasn't it?
I don't remember.
I think it was done by Filmation. The same studios that brought us a lot of the DC properties.
Yeah, and He-Man.
Yeah.
Boy, they were really on a shoestring if that was Filmation, because, oof.
Well, they had to see if the property was going to fly, right? And they also did a television series, a live-action television series of Planet of the Apes, which, coincidentally, we have. If you're ever interested in watching it,
I've got them too.
It's an interesting run of picking up after the series. Because they do reference Chuck Heston's character a few times in the series, and when
he doesn't actually appear after the second one. So.
No, he doesn't appear after
in
the
second one very much either.
No, he's not. It's more of a rescue mission to come get him in the second one. But I mean, the Planet of the Apes as a whole, I think they should take that original material and revisit that as they explore this new. Transition into the new films like they did with Rise. I think Rise was an excellent springboard. Now, if we start talking about the future of the series and actually getting a Chuck Heston character and kind of redoing that story in a modern telling, I think we'd have an excellent run at the franchise.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what they do next with it. I'm kind of hoping they carry on with Caesar.
I believe they are, because Andy Serkis has already signed on for number 2.
Yeah, I mean, I love that first movie, and I really can't wait for the second one. That was one of those movies I couldn't wait for when it came out in the theater, and when I finally saw it, it delivered to me on all levels. So, bars high, guys.
Yeah,
keep
very
it
high.
going. Keep
very
it
high.
going.
All right, so that rounds out our sci-fi and comic books this week. We hope that you enjoyed it. And next week, I don't know what we're talking about. We might be talking about, I don't know. Something. We'll talk about something. If you got any ideas of what
we'll talk to you about something.
Yeah, I mean, if you have any idea of what you want us to talk about on the show, by all means, send us an email to nakedapeprod.com, info@nakedapeprod.com, or you can check us out on Facebook. And Facebook, just go over there and leave us a message on Facebook. Say, I want you guys to talk about this.
Is that the Guys from Queens episode?
No, the Guys from Queens episode, actually, the show is called Behind the Counter. They will be on with us on our 25th episode. So in 2 more episodes, they'll be on. And we've got Rich and John from Behind the Counter from the Queens, Guys from Queens Network in New York City coming on to talk 52, because we're going to be jumping into the zeros at that point. And we'll be featuring the Phantom Stranger on that show.
And you talked to one of the comic book men yesterday.
I did. I talked to, what is his name? Michael Zapsik. I talked to him the other day on the phone at the Red Bank, New Jersey store, and that's Jay and Silent Bob's secret stash, if nobody knows about it. I talked to Michael Zapsik the other day, and he is willing to come on the show anytime we want him to. So
I'm interested to talk to him retailer to retailer. So,
yeah, well, you know, he is a retailer first before he is a television guy and a guy that shows up in movies every once in a while.
Yeah.
You know, being a good friend of Kevin Smith's. And he also does a show called I Sell Comics, which is an internet podcast. If you haven't checked it out, by all means, go check it out. They talk a really good game, and they do that live in the store. So you get to hear people mulling around, the phone ringing. Yeah,
during open hours.
During open hours.
That's
so
not a bad idea.
Yeah, I was thinking that myself. It's an audio podcast. Go check it out. That's over on the Smodco network. So check those guys out as well. And we'll have Michael Zapsik on the show very soon. So that brings us to our reviews of the week. But first, who do we have to thank?
Well, these reviews are brought to you by Words and Pictures, located right here in Calgary, 2610 Center Street Northeast. Phone number is 403-282-8870. Go like them on Facebook. And the store, they got subscriptions and statues and, of course, largest selection of back issues in the city, belt buckles, hats. You name it, they've got it. If they don't have it, they'll find it for you.
Do they have magic cards?
Yes.
Do they have posters?
Kinda.
Do they have T-shirts?
Yes.
Do they have original artwork?
Sometimes. We do right now.
You do right now?
Yes.
And you have really good back issues, or the crappy ones that nobody wants?
We have good ones and crappy ones. And we recently got a Silver Surfer #1 in.
Nice.
Yeah, and a Ghost Rider #1. Somebody
Condition?
Actually, the Silver Surfer is really nice. Same with the Ghost Rider. Somebody flirted a Hulk #1 at me, and being a huge Hulk collector, I damn near fell off my chair, but it wasn't in great shape.
It was one of those.
It was completely intact,
moments.
mind you. So it was like,
Drooling on the counter.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I haven't made the deal on that one yet.
So basically what you're saying is Words and Pictures is the pinnacle place to go to get your comics and collectibles.
Absolutely.
All right. So let's move on with our review this week. I know, I'm such a whore. All right. So our review this week, we're going to start
That
with...
makes me your pimp.
It does. It does. Or
Weird.
it makes the owner of Words and Pictures my pimp.
Yeah, okay, I'll go with that.
Yeah.
I'm just ancillary to the crime.
That's right. You're the guy who goes out and beats the hookers
That's right.
for the pimp so he doesn't have to do it. Where's my money? Anyway, let's just get right out of that and move along.
Okay, so we're moving on to our reviews.
Yes.
Our first book is...
Our first book today is Spike, A Dark Place, brought to us by none other than Dark Horse Comics. And this book is brought to us from Victor Gieshler, Paul Lee, Andy Owens, and, of course, executive producer on this book is Joss Whedon.
And Victor's a movie guy himself, Victor Gieshler, and he's got a lot of comic book work in there as well, and he's worked on a lot of darker franchises, including Blade.
Artwork, what'd you think?
The
Let's talk about the good stuff first.
Yeah, the characters look right. Well, okay, there's only Spike in it, and the rest are aliens, right?
Yeah.
So
Don't those aliens look like the aliens from the very first iteration of Battlestar Galactica?
oh yeah, the insect guys.
Yeah.
Totally, with multiple arms and stuff.
You bet.
Yeah, I mean, artwork, it's serviceable. Everybody looks right. I think it has that show feel to it. Story wise, Spike in Space doesn't work for me, guys. Sorry,
Doesn't work for me either.
This kind of carries on with, we reviewed the Free Comic Book Day book, and it had Buffy, Spike in space with an alien,
A xenomorph from Alien, yeah.
from the Alien
And
movie.
these little bug guys.
And these little bug guys again, and I don't get it. Like it's just, it doesn't work.
First of all, I don't get the story. What was Joss thinking?
Well, I don't know how he got there in the first place.
Well,
I mean,
they don't tell us.
I mean, that probably happened in a Buffy comic I haven't read.
Yeah, if one of our viewers knows, please let us know what happened and how did he get to space and how did he get with these grasshopper-style aliens with turtle backs. I don't get it. But story-wise, again, it's a horror sci-fi story with stupid humor, bad writing. Sorry, I'm going to kill this book all to hell. Like I really did not enjoy this book. I found it hard to get to the end.
I'm trying to be kind about it, but
I can't be kind about it.
I didn't think it was the worst read I've read, and I didn't think it was that difficult to get to the end. But
artwork I enjoyed.
By
will
the
say
end of
that.
it, I didn't care to know anymore. I was like, I'm done with this miniseries. There was nothing grabbed me about it. I love Spike as a character.
I think he works better on screen though.
Well, no, actually, the reason I actually started watching Buffy were the Spike and Drew books Dark Horse had produced initially.
Oh, really? Okay.
During the series run, and I love those books. I mean, they were something so different. They were very different even from the show, and they were darker, kind of more Hellblazer type stories. And yeah, this just wasn't it. I mean, this
it didn't do it for me either.
This was still the more neutered version of Spike we saw in the later run series of Buffy and Angel. So
right.
I don't know. It just he's
because he's a daywalker now too.
He was still afraid of the sun in this, so I assume.
But he's sunbathing in a few scenes.
Yeah, and they explain that.
Oh yeah, that's true.
They explain that this whole, necroglass or something.
Necroglass.
Yeah, you gotta love that.
Is that like necrophilia?
It's just glass that keeps the dead from
being dead. All right.
Anyway, so
yeah, it wasn't one of my favorites. Sorry. If you're
get him back to doing what he's doing. If
you're in the comic shops, folks, have a flip through.
Yeah,
that,
you know,
don't pay hard
Spike
money
was
for
the
this
guy.
book.
He was more interesting. We didn't give a rat's ass, and he was out having fun and kicking ass and taking names. And he was a lot less fun when he just turned into a blonder, broodier version of Angel, and he's just a whiny little bitch in this one.
Yeah, I agree.
Sorry.
Now, next up, we have before Watchmen, #1, Dr. Manhattan. This is brought to us by J. Michael Straczynski and Adam Hughes. This falls right into the rest of the series that we're doing. What did you think of this book?
I was actually quite impressed with this book. It was unexpected, honestly, given what we've read of this series thus far.
Right. It was a real departure. I'll agree with you there.
It was quite a departure. It really travels through his history that we have seen a lot of during Watchmen, but man, they do it via Schrodinger's cat. You know, what's in the box? It's either dead or alive. Is this a review or is it not a review? Or until you've watched it, it's nothing, and it's everything. So, and that's kind of how the book is. And man, I was impressed on all levels. Adam Hughes is doing the artwork in here, and this is his artworks. He's really pulled it back. It's a departure from all that good girl stuff he's become famous for. I mean, it's still recognizable as him, but he really kind of pulled it back a bit in tone, and everything's very deliberate. The way the pages are laid out and the panels are laid out. It probably wouldn't even be half the book it was without Adam Hughes.
I agree with the artwork on this is stunning. It's very reminiscent of what we saw in the actual movie.
Yeah, I
felt that the narrative went on a little too long in this book. I felt that there should have been more dialogue in some of those panels. Especially with the jumping back and forth. It really would have given us a little bit more of a grounded story for this character. Other than that, I mean, I enjoyed the book. I thought it works well in the series of what they've got coming out, and I'm interested to see what they do with it.
It certainly works well with Alan Moore's original stuff and the stuff that's coming out right now.
It's definitely an homage to Alan Moore.
And it's a good insight into the character as well, and getting into his head and what motivates him. I was very impressed.
And what really grabbed me was the emotion of how the clock ties into his overall scheme of life by the end of this book, exactly what we saw in the original Watchmen book and the movie, where he makes the giant clock on Mars.
Yeah.
You know, so I thought that, I mean, it was almost a tearjerker moment there when you read some of those panels.
Yeah.
And it flows well. I agree with you. I think the artwork was done stunningly. I just felt that the narrative was a little too much. I think they could have cut back a little bit on that and had a little bit more dialogue in some of the panels.
Yeah, I didn't have a problem with that, especially after reading Ozymandias. I mean, narrative, that one's really narrative heavy, so this is a similar book in that regard,
right?
Where he's narrating his own story. But I didn't find it nearly as hard to read as the Ozymandias stuff, because Ozymandias is so dry, and you honestly would figure Dr. Manhattan would be too. But it's such a unique approach.
Well, I felt that this had a lot more flavor than Ozymandias.
It's an origin story via astrophysics.
yeah, absolutely. Did you hear the voice of the guy in your head when you were reading this book? The guy who played the character in the movie? I kept hearing his voice in my head as I was reading it.
I always had a voice, because, I mean, I read Watchmen many, many times long before the movie came along, so the voice that was always in my head for the character was still there. Actually, for me, the movie guys didn't capture the voice that
you don't think so?
Was in my head.
I think they did a really good job of keeping that character very dry and emotionless.
The character was intact. It just his voice wasn't right.
I don't know. It appealed to me, in this book for the ladies,
get in my head.
For the ladies in this book, there is junk shots.
Oh yeah. He's still got the big blue penis.
Yeah. Well, actually, it's not that big in this book. It's not as big as the movie.
Actually, it was a little bit bigger than it was in the original series.
Yeah, that's true. Yes, there are junk shots in this book.
So he's got a little bit of blue junk there.
Yeah, he's got a little bit of blue junk. I always wondered, how does he go to the bathroom?
Well, we know he's anatomically correct, so same as everybody else, I assume.
Okay.
Whether he needs to is another matter.
On Mars, did he build himself a clock outhouse?
There's a door.
All right, we're getting just a little too silly here. Let's move on. Before we do, we should say that once all the books for Before Watchmen are out, somebody will have a chance to win the entire series of Watchmen books, as we've discussed many times on this show. And this will be a complete run, all bagged and boarded, and we'll be announcing that contest as soon as all the books are done. So keep your ears and eyes right here on Between the Pages, because somebody's going to win a complete run before the actual trade paperback comes out.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we're going to try and get some other stuff in there for you, too.
It's going to be one heck of a collection.
That's going to be an awesome collection.
Yeah.
And now our last book of the week celebrates 50 years. This is The Amazing Spider-Man number 692. You know that we don't normally do books that are this high in a run, but this is the 50th anniversary celebrating this iconic character from Marvel Comics. Peter Parker started way, way back in the days and was invented by Steve Ditko and the great man Stan Lee, who we see all the time now. He's got properties. He's a media whore. He admitted that in a podcast I saw the other day. He's got some great properties out there. He's moved on to doing his own thing these days, but still will appear in Marvel movies and will still promote Marvel properties.
Oh, well, I mean, he invented all that stuff, including our amazing Spider-Man webhead here.
Yes. And we're giving you some shots here of the first few pages of this book. Now, this book is a little different. It's quite thick. It's more pages than you're going to see.
This is a big book, and it has a $5.99 retail price on it. Does come with Marvel Digital Code in there. Beautiful artwork by Humberto Ramos. Some people don't like that Mexican manga style that he has.
Right.
I personally really like it.
I dug this book, man.
Yeah, I think he's very dynamic.
What really got me, as soon as I turned the opening cover of this book and saw the Steve Ditko Stan Lee story of 8 panels, I believe it is, of Spider-Man, I was immediately hooked. And I read the whole thing from cover to cover, the first chapter of this book, because this works over 3 different stories. The first chapter of this book is the introduction to the new character, Alpha, who is going to be Spider-Man's sidekick for all intent and purposes. He's training this new young superhero.
And this is his origin story, and he has a very similar origin to Spider-Man.
Right.
Obviously, a very different character, a very different power set. And this has got other heroes involved and concerned with the development of this character, and they think Spider-Man's the best man for the job. So,
yeah, I thought the story was really well. I think it's a great launching point for the Alpha book, which is due out soon.
Really?
I think so.
Where do you hear that?
I'm sure I read it on the internet somewhere.
Oh, because the internet is always telling
Come on, you can't tell me Alpha's not getting his own book.
Actually, personally, I think this is one of those stories where things go very wrong for poor old Peter. I honestly, I mean, there's nothing to indicate it in this book, so I'm not really doing any spoilers here. But my personal prediction is Alpha's not going to make it.
You don't think so?
Alpha's going to become the Omega, and I don't know. There might be some. They even forecast that a little bit in there when they talk about.
When he's having the discussion with Reed.
Other mega level characters,
right?
Sentry, and he's go down the list, and it all ends badly for them. So,
I kind of think he's going to get his own book at some point.
Yeah, I could be wrong. I mean,
they're going to keep him a kid-friendly character for as long as they can. I firmly believe that.
I think he'll be dead in 6 issues.
Now, the second story in this book takes place after Peter drops the Spider-Man costume, which is going way back.
Oh yeah, this is during
tosses it in the trash.
Spider-Man No More story,
yeah.
And it's a really small story about a guy who finds the costume
and puts it on for a night,
and it kind of redeems the character in a way.
First he's just trying to rob people.
Yeah, he's just trying to rob people.
Well, the story behind it is he has a sick daughter, and he wants to make the world a better place for his daughter. And I understand that. I mean, he's got noble intentions, but he's going about it the wrong way, and he's using the wrong icon to do it. And then he finally realizes that, wait a second, this is not who Spider-Man is, and then drops the costume back in the same trash bin that he found it in.
Mm-hmm.
And then we all know that Peter Parker goes back and picks it up later. How do you feel about wearing a costume that somebody else wore?
Well, you gotta
especially if it's not been Febrezed.
Yeah, I mean, that guy, he just threw it on. I'm like, I expect Peter's probably going to at least have it laundered.
I don't know. Because when he went back in the original storyline, he just picked it out of the trash, put it on, and away he went.
Oh, that's disgusting.
So, you got other sweaty man stuff in your costume. And the third story in this book is a day in Peter's life where everything just seems to go wrong.
Yes, because our favorite stories are when Peter's life sucks.
Well, absolutely. That's what makes a character.
Yeah, and that's one of those stories. He's late for a gig and with his I don't know his science company thingy.
Yeah,
and I guess a spokesman type of thing. And he's trying to get there. Buses won't take him, and he resorts to the webs, and he's got to stop a crime, and blah 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 blah. It's just one thing after another, and then he finally falls upon this kid who's being bullied, helps him out, and winds up spending a day with this kid and enriching his life.
Yeah, and takes him for ice cream.
Yeah, it's a really wonderful, touching story.
It's a good collection. I think this book is a good collection of stories for anybody who's a Spider-Man fan.
Yeah,
I think you need to go out and buy this book, even at the price tag that it is.
It's a great standalone, sets up the Alpha story, and there's some good standalone stories in there. And even if you only want to pick up one Spider-Man book, it's still, even the Alpha story is a complete story. So.
That's right. So that brings us to what we always talk about every week after our review, and that is, hey, buddy, what's new on the shelf?
What's coming next week? Well, let's see. I got my handy-dandy iPad going here. Angel and Faith, number 13 from the Buffy universe.
Okay.
Aquaman, number 12. Jeff Johns just recently announced he will be leaving that series and taking his team over to Justice League. So I'm very curious to see what Aquaman's going to wind up turning into and who the new crew is on there. But he really made that a good, popular book. So... we've got a little ways to go before he leaves, so hopefully they'll line somebody just as good up with that one, art wise and writing wise. Let's see, what else do we got here? AVX Versus number 5. That's the fight book. Fight.
Who are they fighting?
Each other.
Okay.
It's Avengers versus X-Men. What do you want?
Let's get ready to rumble.
That's essentially what it is. They've dispersed with all plots. They don't, and in some cases, and I hate to say it, I'm enjoying that book more than the other one.
Yeah, I'm falling a little flat with A versus X.
At times, if it takes me 3 or 4 issues to get to the one that grabs me, and then another 3 to 4, it probably should have been shorter, guys. He didn't think that one out.
Well, that's exactly what they did with Fear itself. I mean, that was a cluster of books.
It was off
full
kilter. Not a bright spot for Marvel crossovers, I must admit. Before the Watchmen, Minutemen number 3, so now we're getting halfway through the
Minutemen series?
Watchmen experiment, because that is one of the longer ones. Bionic Woman number 3?
Ooh.
I should have brought some Bionic Woman today for the sci-fi show.
Yeah.
Captain Marvel number 3 with the new Marvel book, and we reviewed number 1, so go back a few episodes and check that out. Crossed Badlands number 12, it will be out for all you Crossed fans, and that is a bi-weekly ongoing series from Avatar. Let's see here. Oh, a book you love, Debris number 2.
I keep thinking about that moment with Riley Rossimo at the theater, and told him not to go and watch our episode that we reviewed debris on because I absolutely hated the book. And he looked at me straight in the face and he goes, that's okay. It was a throwaway for me. I didn't really want to do it, but, it's money.
I needed something to fill the time between gigs.
And, we may actually be having Riley on the show very soon, too.
Yeah, he said he wanted to do the show, so look forward to talking about him and his many projects except for debris.
Except for debris.
Detective Comics annual number 1 of the new 52, so look for that on the shelves. Probably going to be an important book, kiddies, so check it out. Let me see here. Fables. Actually, that's a reorder. Never mind.
All right. Never mind about Fables. Just wipe that from your mind.
But Gambit, we also reviewed that book, number 1, and we quite liked Gambit. And number 2 will be out on the shelves next week, along with Ghostbusters number 12, Godzilla number 4, Goon number 41, another big book for DC, Green Lantern annual number 1. And if you've read any of the Green Lantern titles through 11 and 12, they keep telling you to go to this book. Every damn one of them.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Apparently we're not going to have a new Guardians annual, and apparently we're not going to have a Core annual because all their stories are culminating here, which means something big's coming.
Yeah.
So don't miss this book if you're reading Green Lantern, and maybe if you want to start reading Green Lantern, this is the place to do it.
Well, the last episode or the last issue of Green Lantern, which was number 12, was very much a thriller story. I half expected Michael Jackson to pop out and them kill him too.
Oh,
the zombie killing.
I think that was 11.
No,
you read.
That's the Black Hand. We got number 11 on the shelf back behind you.
Yeah, that's 11.
That's when
Did you read number 12?
I've read parts of number 12.
Oh, you read the last final pages.
Yes.
Oh, okay, never mind. Yeah. I was going to talk about something, and frankly, that would be spoilers for all of you, so
yes.
I'm not going to do it.
And in 2 weeks' time, we're going to start seeing the Zeros come out for September.
Yes, Zeros are very close, and that's going to be a lot of origin stories across the board there. And make it really easy to do DC reviews that month.
Well, that month also for our 25th show, that's when really the Zeros start. We're going to be looking at Phantom Stranger.
Yeah, Phantom Stranger, Talon, and Sword of Sorcery. Team 7.
I know we just did a kind of a history of 52 a few episodes ago, but we are going to be talking more about 52 on the 25th episode with the guys from Queens Behind the Counter.
Yes.
So they'll be joining us for that show.
So we're going to have a big round robin discussion about that stuff. This one's been getting a little press in out there lately. Justice League number 12, hinting at a relationship between Superman and Wonder Woman.
Yeah, I read that today.
I'm not sure why it's getting news because this isn't exactly a first for them, but we've seen them lip lock many, many times. So
yeah, but this is circumventing the whole Lois Lane storyline.
Well, that's because they haven't got together yet,
right?
And
I don't know. I'd take Wonder Woman over Lois Lane any day if I were Superman, because first of all, she could handle sex with me.
Yes, there's no threat of blowing holes.
Because I got to tell you, her head would have come right off in the Fortress of Solitude.
All right. Another big another annual coming out, Justice League International number 1, wrapping up the series there. Pardon me. Little Homer, one shot from the Simpsons Bongo comics, will be out next week, as well as a one shot for Lock and Key called Grindhouse.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, that's right. Let's see what else do we got coming. Mass Effect Homeworlds number 4, Morning Glories 21, National Comics Looker number 1, which is a one shot through the National Comics anthology. Also, the beginning of the DC Phantom Lady miniseries. The multi-character crossover book called Prophecy from Dynamite will be out next week, number 3. Red Sonja 68, also from Dynamite. And a new indie book called Scam, which looks really interesting.
Okay.
So check that out. That'll also be out next week. Sixth Gun from Oni Press is another great indie book. Spaceman also wrapping up from Vertigo. God, look at all the DC annuals out next week.
Yep.
Superman Annual #1 is out next week. So check that out.
Go check out DC's website if you're interested to find out what all the new #1s or the annuals that are coming out.
Sure, not going to have a shortage of DC books to pick from for review next week. Holy cow. That's just amazing of the quantity of them. Let's see. The Web of Spider-Man 129.2 wrapping up the one-shots that are coming out to celebrate his 50th anniversary and resurrecting some of his gone and dead titles. Wolverine the X-Men #15, X-O-Man Award #4, Extreme X-Men #2. That wraps up the list for next week.
Wow.
There's a few other books coming out, but I was just hitting highlights. Big week for you next week.
Okay. So go check out your local comic book store. Wherever you may be in the world, check them out. Find out what's new for you. And if any of those titles appeal to you, check them out and go pick them up. As well as this week, if any of the titles that we reviewed, don't take our opinion for it because we're just a couple of schmucks. If there's something that you like, if you like those books, then go pick them up and enjoy reading them. We don't want to discourage you from any of the books that we review. Just make up your own mind. We're just a couple of schmucks, and we just like to talk about comics.
Yeah, just because we didn't like Spike doesn't mean you won't.
That's right. That's right. You might be into crabs or grasshoppers, or crabs and grasshoppers, but you can get a pill for that or lotion. I'm not sure. Anyway, that wraps up our show for another week. We have beamed into the future just for you, and we will see you next Saturday, as we always do, at 12 noon Mountain Standard Time. That's 2 p.m. in the East and 11 a.m. on the Pacific Coast. So check us out, and if you're overseas, well, it's about 7 hours later than noon, so it's about 7 o'clock over in Great Britain. So if you're over there and you're watching our show, we appreciate you doing that. I want to remind you one more time that we have our Indiegogo campaign going on right now. Help us reach our goal, and if you can't help us monetarily, you can always help us by spreading the word of what we're trying to do to build a much bigger, I want to say station, but we're not really a station. We are trying to build a much bigger network, and we are bringing in a whole host of new shows. We got some great ideas this week from prospective people that want to do shows and allow us to help them with it. So we want to bring you quality program that isn't always tech.
And we have a teaser for one of those new shows to run for you.
Yes,
so
we do.
Check that out.
Let me call that up. There it is.
All right.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby.
So check out Popcorn Lobby, which is coming, I think now we've kind of rescheduled to the end of September as we move into October, because it's a great horror month in October and there's lots of great movies coming out. So by all means, check out Popcorn Lobby. Podcast You will be debuting right around the same time, and that is a brand new show about podcasting, something that we do here each and every week. And I don't like to call it podcasting. I'll be hosting that show. Jason won't be with me. I'll be teaching you the ins and outs and the ups and the downs and all the things that are involved in doing this wonderful thing called internet broadcasting. And if you've got any questions, I hope to have a live audience in the chat room so I can answer questions, because you people really are what make up our show and help us to produce it each and every week. And we thank you. And that being said, it is the end of a show for another week. As always, we will see you
Between the pages.